Have you ever looked back on your life and tried to pinpoint the exact moment everything changed? We love to believe it was a bold decision, a turning point. Maybe the day we said yes to a job, walked away from something toxic, or stood up for ourselves. And don't get me wrong, those moments matter, but they're not what truly shape the direction of your life. You see, life isn't sculpted in grand gestures. It's not defined by applause, medals, or headlines. Life is shaped in silence by the choices you make when no one's watching. That extra hour you spend working on your craft, the decision to get up early even when you're tired, the discipline to say no to comfort when you know discomfort will lead to growth. We often overestimate the power of big decisions and underestimate the quiet force of our daily habits. Think about this. If someone watched a highlight reel of your life, just the big moments, they might think they know who you are. But if they followed you around for 30 days, watching how you wake up, how you respond to stress, how you treat people when you're in a rush, they'd see the truth. Because who you really are is hidden in your patterns. This idea isn't new. The ancient Stoics understood it well. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, once wrote in his private journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He didn't say to wait for inspiration or make a grand speech. He said to be it, daily, quietly, repeatedly. And that's the thing. Your intentions, what you hope to be, are nothing without the habits to back them up. You might want to be a great parent, a strong leader, a calm, focused person. But what do your habits say? Because that's what defines you. Not the dream, the discipline. Not what you want to become, but what you do consistently. Let me give you an example. You can intend to be fit. You might even feel super motivated for a week and hit the gym 5 days in a row. But if you don't build a habit of movement, even 10 minutes a day, your identity doesn't shift. You're still someone who tries to be fit, not someone who is. Now flip that. Let's say every morning without fail you stretch for 5 minutes. You go for a walk, you drink water, you don't talk about it, you don't post it. But you do it, day in, day out. Soon, you're not someone who wants to be disciplined. You are. That's what this is really about: identity. Not the version of you that people see on your best days, but the version you build when it's just you and your choices. That's where true character lives. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of your routine. So ask yourself, what do I repeat? What small action do I come back to again and again, even when no one's keeping score? Because that's the brick your future is being built with. In today's world, we're flooded with highlight reels, hustle culture, instant transformations. But the Stoics would remind us real strength isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, and consistent. It's not forged in fire, it's carved, like stone, day after day, by the drip of disciplined action. So no, you don't need to change your life in one moment. You just need to start practicing the life you want, one silent choice at a time. This is your invitation to stop performing and start becoming, to stop chasing breakthrough moments and start honoring the power of habit. Because at the end of the day, your future won't be shaped by a spotlight moment. It will be shaped by what you choose to do when the lights are off. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. Who are you becoming? With your habits. Not your dreams, not your intentions, not the person you hope to be someday, but the version of you that's showing up, right now, through your daily choices. This is where the Stoics were decades, no, centuries ahead of their time. While most people wait for motivation to strike like lightning, the Stoics took a different path. They didn't wait to feel like it. They built systems. They believed in the power of repetition over the thrill of inspiration. Because let's be honest, motivation is fleeting. Some days you feel on fire. Other days you feel like staying in bed and hiding from life. If you rely on emotion to guide your behavior, you'll live a life of inconsistency. But if you build habits, if you train your mind and body through repeated action, you no longer need to wait for a perfect mood. You become your own momentum. That's the Stoic way. Take Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, yet he still sat down every morning and night to write in his private journal. Not for likes, not for legacy, but to train his mind. That's habit. That's repetition. That's character being shaped in the quiet. And here's the truth that most people overlook. You don't meditate once and suddenly become calm. You don't eat one salad and become healthy. You don't go to the gym for a week and call yourself disciplined. That's not how identity works. Identity is not a decision. It's a pattern. It's the result of thousands of small votes you cast every single day. Every time you choose to read instead of scroll, that's a vote. Every time you speak with patience instead of frustration, that's a vote. Every time you resist temptation and stay aligned with your values, you're casting a quiet, powerful vote for the person you want to become. And no, it won't change you overnight. But that's not the point. We live in a culture obsessed with instant transformation. But real transformation, the kind that lasts, happens in the trenches of your daily habits. You want to be calm. Practice breathing when chaos hits. You want to be focused. Train your mind when distractions scream. You want to be strong. Show up when it's boring, not just when it's exciting. Because here's the paradox. You don't become a disciplined person by thinking about discipline. You become disciplined by doing disciplined things repeatedly until they become second nature. That's the Stoic foundation. That's what separates those who try from those who are. Let me share something personal. A few years ago, I used to wait for that perfect mood to do my creative work. I'd tell myself, when I'm inspired, I'll write. But the inspiration never came when I needed it most. So I flipped the script. I committed to writing every morning at 6 a.m., regardless of how I felt. Some days it was great. Other days I hated it. But after 30 days, I was no longer someone who wanted to be a writer. I was one. That's how powerful habits are. They don't just change your behavior, they rewrite your identity. So take a moment and ask yourself, what habits are you repeating today? What small actions are you choosing when no one's watching? What votes are you casting for strength, focus, and integrity? Or for distraction, comfort, and delay? Because every habit, no matter how small, is either moving you closer to who you want to be or further away. You don't have to overhaul your entire life today. You just need to show up in small ways with intention again and again. The Stoics didn't seek perfection. They trained for progress. They didn't wait to feel brave, calm, or wise. They practiced being brave, calm, and wise until those traits became part of who they were. So maybe the most important question is, what do I want to become? Maybe it's, what habits would the person I want to be practice every single day? And then you start there. Let me tell you something most people get wrong about character. We think character is something we summon in a crisis, that it shows up in the heat of the moment, when things fall apart, when the stakes are high, when all eyes are on us. But that's not how it works. Character isn't built in chaos. It's revealed by it. The real work happens long before the storm arrives. It happens in the quiet, in the repetition, in the choices you make when the world isn't watching. You don't become brave the moment you're asked to speak up. You become brave by practicing honesty when it's uncomfortable. You don't become resilient in the middle of the fall. You become resilient through the habit of showing up, especially when you don't feel like it. That's what the Stoics taught. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for wisdom to hit him during war or politics. He practiced it daily, writing, reflecting, returning to his values again and again, even when life was calm. Epictetus reminded his students, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. He wasn't talking about performance. He was talking about consistency. And that's the heart of it, consistency over crisis. Your character, your true self, is shaped not by what you do once, but by what you repeat. Let's think about it another way. If someone asked you, "What kind of person are you?" how would you answer? Most people respond with good intentions. I'm someone who wants to help others. I want to be calm, kind, strong, disciplined. But what if we looked at your habits instead of your hopes? Do your actions match your values? Are you practicing what you admire? Or are you waiting to feel ready before you begin? Because here's the reality. You don't build discipline by reading about discipline. You build it by doing what needs to be done, especially when it's inconvenient. Every time you follow through, even in the smallest way, you're reinforcing your identity. You're saying to yourself, "This is who I am." And on the flip side, every time you skip, break your promise, or avoid what matters, you're casting votes for someone else, someone less aligned with who you truly want to be. But let's be clear, discipline doesn't mean perfection. You will mess up. You'll have bad days. You'll fall off track. That doesn't erase your progress. The Stoics never demanded flawlessness. They believed in returning, in beginning again, without shame, without self-pity, without waiting for motivation to magically reappear. Because that's real strength, not never falling, but always getting back up. Think about your own life. What do you come back to? When things get tough, do you come back to distraction or to discipline? Do you run toward comfort or return to your principles? The habits you build in peace will protect you in chaos. This is why I believe rituals matter, not because they're flashy, but because they remind us who we are before life tries to shake us. Let me share a personal example. A few years ago, I started journaling every night just 5 minutes before bed. Some days I didn't feel like it. Some days I had nothing wise to write, but I stuck with it. And over time, I noticed something. I wasn't just reflecting. I was becoming more intentional in how I spoke, how I reacted, how I thought. Not because of one brilliant journal entry, but because of hundreds of ordinary ones. That's what repetition does. It slowly carves your character. So if you feel stuck, undisciplined, unsure of who you're becoming, stop waiting for a dramatic change. Start small. Show up. Do it again. Character isn't about what you claim. It's about what you return to, especially after you fall. And if you keep coming back again and again, with patience, with humility, with quiet strength, you won't need to prove your character. You'll already be living it. We've all heard it before. Just find yourself. Like who you are is buried somewhere, waiting to be uncovered in a distant country or during a quiet walk in the woods. But here's the truth. You don't find yourself. You build yourself. And you build through one thing: repetition. Your identity, your confidence, your character, your inner belief isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you earn through action. And not once, not twice, but consistently. Every small action you repeat sends a signal to your brain. This is who I am. And over time, those signals become belief. That belief becomes identity. And that identity shapes how you move through the world. So no, you don't become confident by saying, "I am confident," in front of a mirror. You become confident by proving to yourself that you can be trusted, that you will do what you said you'd do, that when things get hard, you don't back down, you follow through. Let me ask you something. What do your repeated actions say about who you are right now? Because we all have a story running in our head, a story about what we're capable of. But stories can be rewritten, and the pen isn't held by your past, it's held by your habits. Want to feel stronger? Keep the promises you make to yourself. Want to feel more focused? Stop letting distractions win. Want to feel more peaceful? Practice calm when it's hardest to do so, not when it's easy. And don't misunderstand, this isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that your identity isn't fixed. You're not stuck with the version of you that's anxious, reactive, inconsistent. That's just the version you've rehearsed the most. If you've spent years telling yourself, "I'm not disciplined," it's likely because your habits have reinforced that belief. But beliefs are built, and anything built can be rebuilt. That's what the Stoics understood long before modern psychology came along. They didn't talk about finding your passion or manifesting success. They talked about training character, not through theory, but through practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning not because he felt like it, but because repetition anchored him. Epictetus didn't tell his students to imagine a good life. He told them to live it, one action at a time. Identity to the Stoics was never about potential. It was always about proof. So how do you change your identity? You start by showing up differently. You start by doing small things repeatedly that align with who you want to be. Want to be someone who's calm under pressure? It won't come from reading quotes about peace. It'll come from pausing before reacting, from slowing your breath when tension rises, from choosing stillness over panic again and again until it becomes your new default. Want to be someone who's strong? Start by doing one hard thing and don't quit. Then do it again tomorrow, and the day after that. Not because it feels magical, but because you're choosing to build something real. That's the beauty of identity. It's not something you wait for. It's something you participate in. You don't become confident by waiting to feel ready. You become confident by stacking small wins, by keeping your word, by becoming your own evidence. Every time you follow through, even when it's hard, you're voting for the future version of you. And eventually, those votes become your reality. So don't ask, "Who am I?" Ask, "What do my habits say about who I'm becoming?" Because in the end, you are not what you say you want to be. You are what you consistently choose to do. Let's be honest, motivation is a roller coaster. Some days you wake up ready to conquer the world. Other days, just getting out of bed feels like a fight. That's why if you're relying on motivation to change your life, you're building on sand. The Stoics knew this. They didn't chase feelings. They built systems, simple, grounded, repeatable, because they understood something most people miss. Simplicity beats motivation every time. Think about it. Motivation is a mood. It's tied to sleep, weather, stress, hormones, a random comment someone made, anything. It's not stable. It comes and goes without warning. But simplicity, that's solid. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't need you to be inspired. It just says, "Here's the task, do it." That might sound cold, but in reality, it's incredibly freeing. When your life is built around simple, friction-free habits, you don't have to argue with yourself every morning. You don't wake up wondering, "Do I feel like doing this today?" Because the answer doesn't matter. You've already made the decision. Now you just follow through. Let me give you a few examples. Want to read more? Leave the book on your pillow so it's the last thing you see at night. Want to write consistently? Open your laptop before bed so it's ready to go the next morning. Want to meditate? Choose one chair, one time, same place. No debate, no guesswork, just sit. These are not hacks. They're commitments made easy. They're habits designed to reduce friction so you don't need to summon willpower. You just show up. And the beauty of it, the more consistent you are, the less emotional resistance you feel. Because now, instead of trying to be someone better, you're simply living like them. This is something I struggled with for years. I used to design these big, ambitious morning routines: cold showers, journaling, workouts, gratitude lists, green smoothies. They'd work for a few days and then collapse. Why? Because they were too complex, too many steps, too many choices, too much resistance. Eventually, I simplified. I told myself, wake up, one glass of water, one page of writing, one 5-minute walk. That was it, and it stuck. I didn't need motivation anymore. I needed less friction. And that's the key. If your system is too complicated, you'll find too many excuses not to follow through. But if it's simple, if it's clear and doable even on your worst day, you'll keep going. The Stoics didn't wait for ideal conditions. Marcus Aurelius didn't write in his journal because he was inspired. He wrote because it was part of his discipline, his system, his simplicity. He once asked himself, "You were born to do this. Why are you still lying in bed?" That's not motivation. That's clarity. That's a reminder that duty doesn't wait for feelings. So if you're trying to build a better life, don't ask, "How can I stay motivated?" Ask, "How can I make it so simple? I'll do it every day, even when I'm tired." That's where transformation begins. Not in the hype, not in the complexity, but in simple actions repeated without drama. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your systems. And the simpler the system, the stronger your consistency. The stronger your consistency, the stronger you become. Have you ever blamed yourself for not being? From the silence in their quarters, to the simplicity of their meals, to the structure of their day, everything is designed to remove distraction and strengthen focus. Now I get it. We're not all monks. You've got bills, notifications, chaos, and people calling your name. But you can still ask, what's one small way I can shape my space to reflect my goals? Want to write more? Leave your journal open on your desk. Want to stop doom scrolling? Delete the app or move it to a folder so it's not on your home screen. Want to focus better? Clean your desk. Turn off notifications. Use headphones. Close the 17 tabs. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be intentional. And it's not just about physical space. It's also about the people you surround yourself with. If your environment is filled with gossip, negativity, or drama, don't be surprised when your energy and discipline fall apart. But if you spend time with people who are intentional, focused, curious, it rubs off. Discipline is contagious. So is carelessness. So ask yourself, what do I see when I walk into my space? What habits does this setup encourage? Who am I giving access to my attention? And are they helping me grow or holding me back? The Stoics believed we become what we practice, not what we preach. And practice becomes easier, even natural, when your environment supports it. Look, this isn't about building a perfect life. It's about building a supportive one. One where your external world reflects the internal values you care about. So if you've been struggling with discipline, stop blaming yourself and start shaping your world. Because when you design your environment with intention, discipline becomes less of a battle and more of a rhythm. Let's talk about something that derails more lives than failure ever could: emotional reactivity. You felt it before, we all have. That heat rising in your chest when someone disrespects you. That sinking feeling after a tough conversation. That impulsive urge to say something sharp, to shut down, or to scroll endlessly just to escape. And in those moments, logic doesn't lead, emotion does. It hijacks your clarity. It rewrites your thoughts. It makes you say things you regret, or say nothing when something really mattered. But what if I told you there's a way to hold your ground, not by suppressing emotion, but by anchoring yourself through repetition? See, emotions are like storms, unpredictable, intense, and often short-lived. But habits are your roots in the ground. They hold you steady when everything above starts to sway. And here's what most people don't realize. You don't build emotional control in the middle of the storm. You build it before it hits, during calm days, through repeated routines that strengthen your internal structure. Let me explain. If you build the habit of journaling every evening, not just when you're overwhelmed, but every day, you're training your mind to reflect instead of react. If you walk in silence every morning, even for 10 minutes, you're teaching your body how to process before it panics. If you practice stillness, breathing, or quiet self-inquiry when life is normal, then when chaos arrives, you've already rehearsed how to stay centered. That's what repetition does. It gives you a script. So when emotions try to improvise, you already know your lines. I'll share something personal. There was a time when a single frustrating email could ruin my entire day. I'd carry that tension into every conversation afterward. But once I started a simple routine, 5 deep breaths before I responded, a short walk before I replied, things shifted. Not overnight, but gradually. Now that first reaction still shows up, but it doesn't control me anymore. Why? Because I've rehearsed a better response. That's the quiet power of habit. It doesn't just organize your day, it organizes your emotional life. The Stoics were masters of this. They didn't deny emotion, they trained their response to it. They journaled not to document, but to digest. They reflected daily, not because life was dramatic, but because they knew life eventually would be. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And how do you prove yourself in adversity? By falling back on what you've practiced. So I want to ask you, what do you reach for when you're overwhelmed? Do you spiral, or do you return to structure? When emotions flare, do you freeze, or do you follow a rhythm you've rehearsed? Because here's the truth, you can't always choose how you feel, but you can choose what you return to. And what you return to, that steady habit, that silent anchor, can save you from saying something you regret, from quitting too soon, from letting one bad moment define your whole day. We spend so much time trying to control our emotions, but maybe what we really need is to support them. Habits don't suppress how you feel, they hold space for it. They say, it's okay to feel this, but let's breathe first. Let's walk first. Let's write before we speak. So if you want to be less reactive, don't wait for a storm. Build your routines now when the skies are clear. Because those small daily practices, they become your shelter when the winds rise. We've all said it, I just need to feel motivated first. But what if that thinking is completely backward? We believe motivation is the spark, that once we feel inspired, energized, ready, then we'll take action. But the Stoics and life itself show us a different truth. You don't act because you're motivated. You become motivated because you act. It's not energy that creates movement, it's movement that generates energy. Think about it like pushing a heavy wheel. At first, it's hard. It resists. It doesn't budge. But if you keep pushing, even just a little, momentum starts to build. And suddenly, what was once heavy starts rolling. Your habits, your confidence, even your identity work the same way. When you're stuck, you don't need a breakthrough. You need a small win, just one, something manageable, something simple. Because progress creates motivation, not the other way around. Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt proud, not because of some big achievement, but because you followed through on something small? Maybe it was choosing water over soda. Maybe it was putting your phone down and going for a walk. Maybe it was writing one honest sentence in your journal. These moments may seem small, but they're not. They shift your posture. They shift your identity. You go from someone who waits to someone who moves, from someone who hesitates to someone who does. And the more you move, the less you question whether you're ready. Because action builds belief, and belief builds momentum. This is what the Stoics lived by. They didn't wait to feel like philosophers. They practiced philosophy in silence, in hardship, in boredom. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal when it was convenient, he did it daily, because routine mattered more than mood. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to sprint. You just need to stop standing still. Even a slow, awkward first step is better than no step at all. even 5 push-ups, even 1 deep breath, even sitting at your desk for 2 minutes. Because once you start, you're no longer stuck. Let me share something personal. There were days I felt completely uninspired, no ideas, no energy, no clarity. But I told myself, just write 1 sentence. That was the deal. Most days that sentence turned into a paragraph. Sometimes it didn't, but I still won because I honored the commitment. And over time, those small wins built massive momentum. That's how confidence is built. That's how identity shifts, not through hype, but through habit. You want to feel more focused. Don't wait for mental clarity. Do something, anything, that gets you moving in the right direction. Clean your desk, stretch, set a timer for 10 minutes and start. Because once you're in motion, motivation shows up late to the party, but it always shows up. And here's the thing most people don't realize. You don't need to feel powerful to do powerful things. You just need to do 1 thing, then another, and slowly the hesitation fades. The excuses quiet down, and the identity you once wished for becomes the identity you now live. So the next time you feel stuck, don't wait for the perfect mindset. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Move first, then watch what follows. Because in the end, momentum is more reliable than mood. And once you build it, it can carry you farther than motivation ever could. Let's talk about your values, not the ones you write in your journal, not the ones framed on your office wall or posted on your bio, but the real ones, the ones you live. Because here's the truth. Your values aren't what you say. They're what you ritualize, what you return to day after day when no one is watching. That's the clearest mirror of what actually matters to you. You say you value calm, but do you pause before reacting? You say you care about growth, but do you create space each day to learn, reflect, or practice? Because rituals don't lie. They quietly tell the truth about who you're becoming. And here's the powerful part, a ritual doesn't need to be grand. It can be small, gentle, almost invisible. A breath before you respond. 5 minutes of journaling before the day begins. Putting your phone away during dinner. Standing up when the alarm rings instead of hitting snooze. These are tiny signals to your mind and body. This is what I value. This is who I choose to be. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius began and ended his days in reflection, not because he was bored, but because he believed wisdom was something you returned to, not something you stumbled into. Epictetus didn't just teach philosophy, he embodied it through ritualized behavior, structure, and repetition. They weren't waiting to feel inspired. They built their days around what mattered, and that's the secret. Rituals are your quiet declaration of identity, not what you hope to be, but what you're training to be. Now let's flip the coin. Because not all rituals are intentional. Some are unconscious, and they speak just as loudly. That endless scroll before bed, that's a ritual. That sarcastic comment you always make when things feel tense. Ritual. That first instinct to avoid, to distract, to numb, all rituals. And they're shaping you too. Not toward your highest self, but toward the path of least resistance. That's why awareness is everything. Ask yourself honestly, what do I actually repeat each day? Are those repetitions aligned with the person I want to become, or the person I'm trying to outgrow? Because here's the good news. You don't need to wait for a breakthrough to realign. You just need to build a new ritual, one that reflects the values you want to embody. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Something repeatable, purposeful, and quietly powerful. Start with one sentence in a journal, 1 breath before you speak, 1 minute of stillness, 1 small promise that you keep. That's enough to start changing your inner narrative, because every ritual sends a message to your mind, your body, your spirit. This is who I am. And the more you repeat it, the stronger that message becomes. Until one day, it's not just something you do, it's someone you are. So no, you don't need to wait until life slows down. You don't need to design the perfect routine. You just need to ask, what is one small act I can honor daily that speaks to what I truly believe? Then do it, silently, consistently, not for applause but for alignment. Because in the end, it's not the values you post, it's the ones you practice. We tend to think of freedom as the absence of rules. No schedules, no limits, no pressure, just doing what you want when you want. But here's the truth most people don't realize until it's too late. Without discipline, freedom is an illusion. Because when you have no structure, you're not actually free. You're reactive, you're scattered. You're at the mercy of every impulse, every distraction, every mood that comes and goes. You say yes to things you should say no to. You stay up late when your body begs for rest. You chase comfort instead of progress, and you call it freedom. But what it really is chaos dressed up as choice. True freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. It's having the strength to choose what matters, even when it's hard. It's the freedom to wake up clear-minded because you didn't stay up binge-watching. It's the freedom to say no without guilt because your time has purpose. It's the freedom to trust yourself because you've shown up for yourself over and over again. And that freedom comes from discipline. The Stoics understood this deeply. They weren't anti-emotion, they were anti-indulgence. They believed the person who is ruled by their urges is not free at all. Seneca said, "No man is free who is a slave to his body." And that includes more than just physical impulses. It includes the distractions, the avoidance, the excuses we let control us. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. It's about creating a life where your actions reflect your values, not your moods. Where you don't need to constantly negotiate with yourself. Where you don't waste energy deciding if you'll do the right thing, because you've already chosen who you want to be. Let me give you a practical example. Think about the person who works out every day at 7 a.m. They don't wake up and ask, "Should I exercise today?" It's not a debate. It's not about motivation. It's a decision made long ago, one that's honored with repetition. That's what discipline gives you. Freedom from decision fatigue. Freedom from emotional tug-of-war. Freedom from living life on accident. Now look, discipline doesn't mean rigidity. It doesn't mean never resting, never adjusting, never being kind to yourself. It means choosing what you value again and again, even when no one's watching. It means showing up with integrity, not perfection. And it's not always easy. You will have days when your willpower runs low, when distractions whisper louder, when it feels easier to drift than to decide. But that's exactly where discipline steps in. Not to restrict you, but to rescue you, to bring you back to what matters most. The more disciplined you become, the more peace you feel, because your life is no longer driven by reaction. It's guided by intention. You eat better not out of guilt, but out of care. You focus not out of pressure, but out of clarity. You rest not out of exhaustion, but because you earned it. That's freedom. Not a life without limits, but a life without chaos. Not a life ruled by mood, but a life aligned with purpose. So if you're chasing freedom, don't run from discipline. Build it, practice it, make it your ally. Because the most liberated version of you, the calmest, clearest, most capable version, is waiting on the other side of the habits you keep. Here, as something most people overlook, you are not defined by what you wish for. You're defined by what you repeat. Your habits, those quiet, often invisible routines you return to every day. They are the true architecture of your character, not the big dreams, not the once-a-year declarations, but the small actions you take when no one is clapping. That's what shapes the person you're becoming. You see, transformation doesn't happen in a single moment. It's not the result of a burst of motivation or some purpose. And with new practice, new habits comes a new identity. That's not motivational fluff. That's neuroscience. That's Stoic truth. And that's personal transformation. Marcus Aurelius didn't write just when he felt inspired. He journaled every day to become a better man. Not to look wise, but to live wisely. Seneca didn't talk about courage, he practiced it, one action at a time. Because the Stoics knew, you don't become calm by thinking about peace. You become calm by practicing stillness. You don't become disciplined by watching videos about discipline. You become disciplined by getting up and doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. So what do you do now? You don't wait, you don't overthink it. You pick one small thing and repeat it. That's how character is formed. Not through applause, not through intensity, but through quiet, deliberate, consistent action. So no, you don't need a grand plan. You don't need perfection. You just need a rhythm, a system, a few things you return to even on the hard days. And over time, those habits will shape your peace, your resilience, your identity. You'll stop chasing the person you want to become and start building them, one action at a time. Let me leave you with this. You are not what you say you are. You are what you prove you are, with every repeated choice. Think about that for a moment. It doesn't matter what goals you set on January 1st. It doesn't matter what you post on social media or how many books you own about personal growth. None of that defines you. What defines you is what you do consistently, in silence, without applause, when no one's watching. That is the essence of Stoic wisdom: consistency over intensity, action over emotion, and identity, not through what you imagine, but through what you repeat. It's a powerful reminder in a world obsessed with instant results and dramatic transformation. You see, the Stoics didn't believe in waiting for the right mood. They didn't wait for motivation to strike like lightning. They understood that who you are is not revealed in your high points, but in your repeated patterns. Marcus Aurelius didn't become wise by thinking about philosophy. He became wise by practicing it daily, by writing, reflecting, showing up again and again. Seneca didn't become brave through grand speeches. He became brave through action, especially when it was hard, inconvenient, or unrecognized. So I want to ask you this: what are you proving with your daily choices? Because every time you follow through, every time you show up when it's easier to quit, pause before reacting, honor a small commitment, you're not just completing a task, you're casting a vote for the person you're becoming. That's how transformation works, not with fireworks, but with quiet, stubborn repetition. And here's the truth that can free you. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right every time. You just have to return. You just have to begin again without drama, without self-pity. That's discipline. That's freedom. That's character. And in the end, your character isn't a title. It's not a label. It's a rhythm. So don't chase intensity. Chase alignment. Don't chase feelings. Chase your next action. Because what you repeat builds you. And over time, what you build becomes you. Your legacy isn't written in a moment of inspiration. It's carved habit by habit, choice by choice, breath by breath. So as you move forward, remember, you don't need a new version of yourself waiting around the corner. You just need to prove through what you do who you already have the potential to become. Let the world